If you haven't already heard the news, Patrick Beverley is coming to the Los Angeles Lakers. Woj dropped this bomb on us last night, and I was not really surprised, but I did have some immediate thoughts and reactions to hearing that the Lakers were giving up THT to get Patrick Beverley. Now, before I get into my thoughts, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you followed my content at all, I have a video that I made about Patrick Beverley, and I've spoke on him several times. And being that I am a LeBron James fan, and I'm a fan of more, I won't say ethical basketball, better yet, let me be very specific. I'm not into dirty play. I know that every team needs a guy who's going to go a little bit harder on defense, who's going to make the best players in the league uncomfortable with their defense. I've seen Patrick Beverley do some things that honestly I personally don't think should be part of the game. And I know that basketball is a contact sport, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. It's certainly not football or rugby. It is a physical game. There is contact. Guys are going up against each other. But when you see people get injured by the same player for the same old dirty plays, it is really hard for me personally to respect a player like that. So I've said that. I stand on that. You know I'm a LeBron James fan. I'm a Laker fan. He's now a Laker, and I'm still rooting for the Lakers. But Patrick Beverley hasn't quite won me over because I've watched basketball and watched his career long enough to make that assessment that he is dirty, and that bothers me, especially when you see guys get injured and potentially have to miss out on games, and it could potentially impact someone's career in a horrible way. But anyway, that's not what I'm addressing in this video. I'm talking about my initial reactions to hearing that he's coming to the Lakers. I was surprised, honestly, that the Lakers would be willing to give up Stanley Johnson and THT for Patrick Beverley. For this reason, I have never seen Patrick Beverley make a hugely significant impact on the offensive side of the basketball. And THT and Stanley Johnson both are these young players that with development could be impactful in the league and have had glimmers of potential greatness. And the Lakers are an older team, so you would think that if they are building towards the future, they will nurture talent, develop talent, a lot like the Golden State Warriors have over the last decade. And I don't see that, but I understand the Lakers have a significantly older superstar in LeBron James, who has a very small window of maybe 2 to 3 years if he plans to make another go at a ring. So you have to think about the more immediate needs towards meeting that goal, because it's not like you have 3 years or 2 years or even maybe 1 year to develop players that can support the Lakers in winning a championship while LeBron is still standing at the forefront of this team. And so I get that part of it, but I would think, given some of the struggles that they've had in the last several years, particularly let's stick to this past year, I personally would think that the Lakers would want to maintain some level of offense through whoever they pick up. And that's because Anthony Davis, although he looks great and is healthy now and ready to come and tackle this season, he's still injury prone. And secondly, you have Russell Westbrook. We'll talk about him. We'll make him a completely separate item. You have LeBron James, who's 37 years old. He's an older player. And with older players, even players that are as athletic and as good a shape as LeBron James is, injuries start to pop up. Things start to happen. I mean, no one gets to be at the height of their fitness, the same fitness they were at 25, 26, 27 for the rest of their life. Everybody ages and things tend to start catching up with you. So the fact that they gave away a player like THT and a player like Stanley Johnson, who could be, the future core of your team, or maybe even the future guys that you build around, or that you're building another great player, you're pairing them with these guys. The fact that they were willing to give that up means that it's very clear they're looking to win a championship in the next 2 years. But I just am surprised they were willing to give up that offense. Now, the other thing that's shocking is that Russell Westbrook and Patrick Beverley have had a really contentious relationship throughout Russell Westbrook's career. We know that a lot of players have things to say about Patrick Beverley because he is a professional pest, and he has got under the collar, so to speak, of so many really great players like LeBron and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. He's that guy, whether you like him or not. He does agitate and make the best players in the world uncomfortable. And that's valuable to a lot of teams, hence him having a job in the NBA, although he has kind of been passed around. And I'll give him credit for this much. Number one, he is very intelligent and understands the game of basketball. And don't judge a book by its cover, because he seems like he seems a little, I'm not going to use a word like crazy, but he seems like he's, a very passionate guy and very animated, kind of an entertaining guy, but he's also extremely smart, has been around the game of basketball for decades, and absorbs a lot of information, not only about the game of basketball, but the opponents that you'll face. He is really calculating and trying to understand some of the ways in which the greatest players in the world move. And any defensive specialist worth their salt is a student of the game, because they literally have to sit and study these players in order to understand how to make them uncomfortable, how to challenge them. That's an athletic and a physical pursuit, but it's also an intellectual pursuit. So I have to give credit to Patrick Beverley. He is a very smart basketball player who understands the game and has found a way to make himself valuable to any team in this league, whether people like me like it or not. So I'm going to give him credit for that. And because he just works really hard, doesn't give up, and his story is very inspiring as far as how he has developed in this league. So there is that. But he and Russell Westbrook do not get along as far as we know. Given it's been so many instances where we think that players hate each other's guts because of how hard they go against each other on the court. But then in reality, they're good friends. They talk with each other behind the scenes. They have relationships with each other's families. And they understand that athletics is a competition and is so-called quote-unquote serious. But truth be told, it is, it's a game. And there are way more important things in this life than any game you'll ever play. There's family, there's love, there's connection, there's tragedies that people are going through. These guys are human beings and they have lives, and we don't really know what the nature of their actual relationships are based on what we see happen on a basketball court. So maybe we're all jumping to a conclusion that isn't based in reality when we assume that Russell Westbrook and Patrick Beverley cannot coexist. But we've seen things like Patrick Beverley injure him, or at least attempt to, even after he had injured him once. Things like that, I can imagine, are hard to forgive. You've seen Patrick Beverley say things in reference to Russell Westbrook that are very contentious. Do it in a public forum outside of basketball, in interviews. We've seen him say Russell Westbrook is trash. So I can't imagine a player like Russell Westbrook, who seems to have a very healthy ego and sense of self, feeling 100% perfectly fine with Patrick Beverley coming onto this team and being his teammate. As far as the story of Russell Westbrook goes, there are lots of antagonists that we can name, including fans who nickname him Russell Westbrook, and everybody clowning him or criticizing him and putting him on the chopping block for how he's played in the last year, and then using that as a magnifying glass for things that we weren't paying attention to when he was in Oklahoma City, especially where there were very few expectations after Kevin Durant and James Harden left that Russell Westbrook was going to be an impactful player by himself. And the fact that he was able to do some things, get to the playoffs, even push his way all the way to Western Conference Finals, almost not by himself. Obviously, he had help, but he was the only superstar, and he was doing that. And that's not an easy thing to do, but we know what his history is. It's hard to imagine a player like him having just complete and total nirvana when told he's going to be on a team with Patrick Beverley. That leads me to my next point, which is maybe Russell Westbrook is definitely going to get traded. I'm even going to say something a bit more conspiratorial and wonder if this isn't a way to put more pressure on Russell Westbrook to be willing to accept a buyout of some sort that doesn't capture the full value of what he would get if he stayed and played. So this will be a really interesting story to follow, given all the various components, all the different things that this implies. But in the long run, I do wonder, aside from Russell Westbrook's issues with Patrick Beverley in the past, I do sit back and wonder, is this going to make the Lakers a better team or a worse team? And I think there's a question mark on that. There's certain players you could get. Like, for example, if they let's say they had been able to pull off the Russell Westbrook for Kyrie Irving trade. You and I know that people would have immediately thought, okay, this is going to take the Lakers over that line, way past that line, because you got a healthy AD, God willing, fingers crossed, a healthy LeBron James, again, God willing and fingers crossed, and a present healthy Kyrie Irving. Again, God willing and fingers crossed. This would dominate in the NBA hands down. Are they going to win every game? No. But those are three smart, well-seasoned, champion basketball players led by one of the greatest, potentially, I know that's up for debate as well, the greatest basketball player ever, wearing Lakers jerseys, killing the game. I'm sorry, they would be killing the game. I think they would be. But bringing Patrick Beverley on, I don't know how much this changes with or without Russell Westbrook. So we'll see. There's some rumors that the Indiana Pacers are looking to do a deal with the Lakers that will help them unload contracts, and they would take him for a year. And given that it's Indiana, that would be like OKC all over again, a smaller market where he's gonna make people want to come out and see the game for a year, and that's fine. You know, it works for everybody if they can pull it off. What were your immediate reactions when you heard the news that Patrick Beverley was going to be on the Lakers? Secondly, do you think Russell Westbrook is going to stay with the Lakers? And if you think he's going to stay, how do you think that's going to work? Is it going to be a copacetic situation? And thirdly, do you think that the Lakers are better off or worse for the trade? And would you have done the trade? I appreciate everyone who has taken the time to listen to me. And thank you so much for supporting my content. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm out.